Hey there, welcome back to my channel. You're watching part 8 in the video series that I prepared in order to be able to present you with the content of my theory of knowledge essay, Deconstructing the Human Condition. Chapter 7 is about ethics, and I'm going to read a section of this chapter to you. Here goes. This particular branch of philosophy concerns itself with the moral aspects of reality. Ethically sound behavior in the Occidental worldview, which is the Western worldview, is widely accepted to be underpinned by a belief in the intrinsic rightness of that behavior, that it is motivated by the interests of fellow humans, that it is induced by free will, and that it is deliberate, ideally speaking. For those of us who believe in the existence of this or that particular deity as the measure of all things, the prime incentive for moral behavior typically will be to act according to the will of these gods. But how do these believers go about accurately establishing the will of their chosen gods? For obvious reasons, atheists cannot fall back on the God principle and need to come up with a different foundation from which to build their moral edifice. And virtuous as the bastion of moral exploit may be, it is not exempt from the burden of theory. Ethical arguments and logical arguments display a curious commonality in the use of premises as their anchor points. Depending on the choice of these premises, at least 5 distinct schools of thought can be identified. Altruism has been described as the mindset in humans that allows them to let the interests of fellow humans prevail at the expense of their own personal gains. The line dividing ethical egoism from altruism, however, has a distinctively obscure quality to it. What is meant by that is that in reality, ethical egoism may and does abound in the guise of seemingly altruistic acts of selflessness. In other words, people may and do display morally acceptable behavior for their own personal betterment. Effective altruism is the popular term coined for the present-day transnational socio-economical movement whereby private individuals and corporate entities decide to structurally donate large sums of money out of their personal or corporate income to charitable initiatives and projects of a mostly utilitarian nature. A relatively high-profile executive example of this ethically motivated phenomenon is the Bill and Linda Gates Foundation. You are hereby encouraged to further investigate the business of effective altruism and to possibly actively engage in it. Ethical egoism is focused on the proposition that humans tend to prioritize personal long-term happiness and as a result align their overall behavior accordingly. The renowned Greek philosopher Plato was of the opinion that, contrary to popular belief, moral egoism does not warrant immoral actions because these will not be supportive of the pursuit of long-term happiness. Conversely, it does not by necessity exclude them either, since the pursuit of short-term pleasure may be an equally powerful urge. Looking at the less or more dire natural state of large parts of our planet, resulting from indiscriminate economically motivated human acts of large-scale intervention and exploitation, one might feel inclined to disagree with Plato's position. Moral duty, as envisaged by the 19th century German philosopher Immanuel Kant, can be summed up as saying that the expected outcome of one's actions is in and of itself insufficient grounds for establishing moral significance, and that original intentions and guiding principles need to be incorporated into the equation. According to its advocates, moral duty the starting point of which is the presence in a human individual of free will and the rational mind from where to identify the categorical imperative that moral judgment is not arbitrary but uniformly applied and universally binding. To minimize the risk of structurally impaired moral judgment as a result of overemphasis on the duty aspect, which would be a radical Befehl approach to duty, Kant did also suggest to exercise consistent intellectual restraint in deciding on a moral course of action. You are invited to consider the question whether your personal ethics are permanently upstanding and beyond reprehension, and in case of clear moral lapses and slip-ups, if a morally flawless state of being is desirable, or even humanly attainable. Moral relativism purports to the realities of worldwide disparity in the approach to moral practice and the perceived absence of independent foundations for moral values. Taken at face value, this position could create an impression of implied social tolerance, of the anything goes kind, but when put in a historical perspective, it can be readily observed that even ethically enlightened and liberal humans are prone to easily disregard moral concern for fellow humans outside the borders of their own communities, especially in times of perceived large-scale economical and political crises. Utilitarianism can be characterized as the middle road between ethical egoism and altruism, in that it strives to moderate both extremes and to forge a compromise between the two. It seeks to maximize the rewards of short-term pleasure for the greatest number of people in order to promote long-term happiness for everyone. On the surface, this seems a fairly straightforward idea, but despite the appeal of its theoretical qualities of democracy and egalitarianism, the proposition to measure dissimilar sources of gratification and pleasure on one common scale bears all the characteristics of an impossibly tall order. For instance, smoking cigarettes may seem pretty cool to some, but breathing clean air will hold an equally powerful attraction for many others of our kind, that is, our human species. Additional counter-arguments can be found in the well-documented human tendency towards tribal exclusion. These are "you are not one of us" types of behavior, and the ever-present challenge of finding consensus in assigning collective moral values to individual pleasures, which, in its turn, is more often than not compounded by the grossly underdeveloped aptitude in many, if not all, humans to predict the outcomes of their own actions, let alone those of others. So this is a section of chapter 7 about ethics from my TRK essay. Again, you can find the full text on my WordPress blog, erikvandepoel.wordpress.com. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please like and subscribe to my channel. If you have comments, questions, please leave them in the comment section. For now, thank you for watching. My name is Erik van der Poel. I hope I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.